Hello, we are going to work on a project. So our project will sum up everything, including the IP address, subnetting, DHCP setup, and routing. We are going to have three separate networks connected to each other with a router, and DHCP will be used in each of the networks to assign IP addresses. So basically, we are going to have uh, a network. For example, network A will have three computers and then a DHCP server and a switch. The IP address in here will be given by the DHCP server, and all of them are connected to the first router. And then we have the second network and we have the third network. We can think about them as different schools. And the IP addresses for the first one is 192.168.1.0, second network is 2.0, third network is 3.0. And then there are three routers connected to each other, so the data from this network can go to the other one, and each computer here is able to communicate with all the other networks. And so this is basically a small internet, the worldwide internet. The three routers connected to each other, they are having different networks between them. So the first one is 10.0 between these two routers. Then between these two routers we'll have another network which is 12.0. Between these two routers we have 11.0. This way we have network A, network B, network C. They are connected all over each other, and each of the computers here will be able to communicate with all the computers around it. And all of the networks, they have DHCP server that provides the IP address to the computers. So let's start it. For that purpose, we are going to use the router 2911, and we are going to create a triangle network, and then we are going to use the DHCP server to give the IP addresses. So let's see the shape. We are going to have three computers, DHCP server, a switch, and then the router. Let's create it. So at the router we are going to use for the first one is this one, and we will have 1, 2, let's have a laptop, 3 computers, and we are going to have a server, DHCP server, and we can have a switch. Then we will connect everything with the switch. And this one we can connect this one, the gigabit 01, to the gigabit 00. We can select any of these, but I want to organize everything so that all of the networks are connected to the first port of the router. So gigabit 00. Here we go. Perfect. Now we will have to configure the DHCP server so that this will provide IP address to these computers. So I'm going to click here. Before that, I'm going to write the IP address here. So we have 192.168.1.0. So the network we have here right now, this network will have that IP address, which is the range between 192.168.1.1 to 255. So I'm going to click here, and let's get to desktop. Let's give an IP address 192.168.1.2. So the default gateway, I'm going to give 1.1, and the IP address for the server is 1.2. Let's make it DHCP server. We are going to turn it on, and default gateway we are going to give 192.168.1.1, and the IP address in the network will start from 5, and we have maximum number of users is 255. And what else do we need? Nothing. Save it. Perfect. We turn it on. 1.1. We have the IP. Perfect. Now we go to each of the computers. Click on the computer and IP configuration, make it DHCP. So I should give the IP, here we go, 1.5, and this is the default gateway. Let's go to the second computer, desktop, DHCP. We should get an IP for this. Perfect. And the third computer, IP configuration, DHCP. Here we go. That's perfect. Now we all of these computers are able to see each other, so I can simply send a message from this computer to the other computer without any issues, and it's gonna arrive and go back. That's perfect. Now let's go with the router. Let's define this network to the router. So we have the default gateway, the IP of the router 1.1. So I'm going to click here and then click the router so I can see the port. So 0.0. I'm going to click the router, command config, and 0.0. First of all, I'm going to turn it on, and 192.168.1.1. Perfect. Now all of these computers are able to communicate with the router. That's perfect. Now we need the second network. So I'm going to create one computer, one laptop, maybe two laptops. And then I'm going to have a switch and a server, DHCP server that gives IP address, and then a router is 2911. Perfect. Now let's select everything and take this one a little bit down. Perfect. By the way, we can put a color here so that we know this one is a different network. This is just to show that this one is a network with this color. Okay, and now let's connect the computers here. Now for this, between the switch and router, I'm going to use the crossover. This one is the copper crossover cable. So click on here and make it 0.1. Click on here and make the first port. Perfect. Now we are going to turn on the DHCP server just like the previous one. We're going to first of all leave IP address. Before IP address, I'm going to write the IP range. So we are going to have 192.168.1, nope, .2.0. So the IP range will be between 2.1 until 2.255, which is good. Perfect. Now let's go to the DHCP. Let's give an IP address. So 192.168.2.2. The second IP in the range. The first IP we are going to give it to the router. The second IP will be to the DHCP. That's how we organize things. 192.168.2.1. Good. And let's go to the services. Let's turn on the service and the default gateway IP of the router 192.168.2.1, and let's give the IP addresses to which will be given to the computers. I want to start it from 5 to 255. That's good, and everything is turned on. We have the default gateway and save it. Perfect. Now we go each of the computers and make it DHCP. Let's see, it gets perfect. The first IP is given. Now second computer and third computer. So now this network is perfectly working, but it doesn't, you see this red line? This means that the router is still, there is no no road or no way open to the router, so I have to configure the router. I click on the router. Before that, I click on the triangle. It shows me the gigabit, or I can click on it and then click the router and see which port I'm gonna pick. So the first port, 0.0. I'm going to go to config 0.0, and the first IP address 1.68.2.1. So this is the IP of the router, and I will turn it on. Perfect. Now all of these computers are seeing the router, and the router sees all these computers as well. I'm going to make a shape and to show that this one is a different network. Here we go. Click here, let's change. Perfect. Now we have our third network. So our third network, the same way. We have 3 computers, we have a switch, we have a server, and we have 2911, a router connection here. Then the connection between the switch and the router, I'm going to specifically choose gigabit 01 to gigabit 00. It is all the same in all the other networks. Cool. Now let's configure the DHCP server. Click on the DHCP server. Before that, let's write the IP address range 192.168. So here 2.0, 1.0, we're going to make this one 3.0. Good. And now we will go to the server and give an IP address first of all. 192.168.3.2 and default gateway 92.168.3.1. Good. And let's go to the services, DHCP. Turned on, default gateway 192.168.3.1. The IP address is starting from 5, so 567, and everything is set. Perfect. Save it and close. So we go to the first computer, desktop IP configuration, and we should get the IP. Perfect. And desktop IP configuration, the IP, and desktop IP configuration. There we go. Perfect. Now we got all these computers have IP addresses. They are able to communicate with each other. Now we have to configure the router. So I go the same way, make sure it's connected to 00 and config 00, and I'm going to give an IP from the range 192.168.3.1 and turned on. Perfect. That's it. Now we are coming to this step where we connect the routers together. So these networks, they have their specific IP addresses. Let's give this network cool. Now each of the connection between each of these routers is a different network. So there's the connection here. Let me connect it. For example, the first one is 01 to 01, then 02 to 02, and here is 02 to 01. It's not a big deal, we're gonna see the things. So this one is a different network, just like the IP range. We have different network here, the 1.0, 2.0. This one is different from this network, it is different from this network. So let's set this network first of all. I'm gonna click here and to see where is it connected. So 0.1. Before that, I'm going to give IP addresses, IP ranges for the network, so I will not be confused. So I'm going to give 192.168.10.1 for the first for this connection. I can copy it and so it is 11.0. Oops, this one is 10.0, 11.0, and then we have 192.168.12.0. Here we go. So this network is 11.0, this one is 10.0, this one is 12.0. So the right side of this router and the left side of this router should have an IP from 10.1 to 10.255. Let's see the first one. It is gigabit 01. I'm going to go here, gigabit 01. I'm going to pick an IP from this range. So 192.168.10.1 and turn it on. So I gave an IP address to this port right now. Perfect. And I'm going to give an IP address to this port. So it is 01. I'm going to give here 01 here, 01. 192.168.10.2, the next IP address in the range. So now these two computers are able to communicate. Okay, now we come to the right side of this router. Let's see which port we are going to see. 02. Click on the router and click the 02. What's the IP address we're gonna give? 192.168.11.1, the first IP in the range. And we're going to click here which port. 01. Okay, 01. Let's turn it on. 192.168.11.2. 11.2. Perfect. Now these two routers are able to communicate. So here we go with the third one. So the right side of this router, 02, click on it and let's see, 02, turn it on. So 192.168.12.1, the first IP in the range, .1. Okay, and then let's see what 02. And here we go, 192.168.12.2, the second IP address in this network. Okay, everything is done. Now all of these routers, they are able to see each other, but still I will not be able to send a message from this computer to this computer. You see, if I delete it and send a message back again, I still won't be able to get the message to the other side. Why is that? Because we haven't configured the routers to see each other. So how does it go? We should click on the router and we should say that, hey, the routing protocol, we are going to connect this network to this network to this network. So each router, wherever it connects, whatever network it connects, I have to provide it here. So the first network is 192.168.0. I'm going to write 192.168.1.0. The first IP, let's say the first class or the first IP range. That one is done. So I added all these networks into the routing protocol, into the routing area where they can be routed. And then I'm going to add the second place because it is a part of the first router. So I'm going to add 192.168.11.0. That network is added to here, the routing table we are talking about, and then we're going to add this one to the routing table as well. 192.168.10.0. So you see right now this router, the routing table it has, are able to see this network, and this network. Now this one is done perfectly. Now we go to this router and we have to do the same thing here. Click on the RIP and let's add the networks it is connecting together. So 192.168.3.0, which is the IP here, then 192.168.11.0, which is the IP here, and 192.168.12.0, which is here. Then add it. Now this router and this router are perfectly able to communicate, but this one still no. Let's go to the routing table and add the networks to the routing table. 192.168.2.0. It is IP. We are working here right now. And 192.168.10.0, which is for this one, and then 192.168.12.0, which is this network. And now we are done. Now if I want to send a message from here to here, I go to simulation. The first time it may give us an error or it may not. So it used this path to go to the other side. Now if I delete this path, if I delete it, I'm going to delete it for the first time. And now if I send the message again from this computer to this computer, see what is happening. The first time it doesn't go there, that's okay. A second time I'm going to send it again. Here we go. It took the longer path. It gave us an error again. Still okay. This time it will go perfectly. Here we go. So the first thing that it was added to the routing, this was added to the routing table, but then we deleted it. So right now, when we send a message again, it was just confused where to send a packet, and then it found a new way. So I'm going to add the path again and send the message again. Just wondering what will happen. It chose this one because this one is the shortest path to send the message to the other side. And if I send a message from here to here, if I go click on it, I should be perfectly able to send a message. The first time, most of the time, it gives us kind of error. That's totally okay. and here we go. Cool, we got the message back again, accepted. Perfect. So this is our project. What did we applied these 10.0. This is the IP addresses between the routers. We gave these IP addresses to the networks, and we tried, the last thing, we tried to test the computers if they are working, and here we go. That's it.